I'm Christopher Hine. Today we're going to talk about Bokken. The Bokken we use in this school is based heavily on Saito Sensei's work with Bokken, but is definitely focused through my interpretation of Bokken via a lot of other historical sources and my own research into fighting with swords and how that works. First thing we're going to talk about, and one of the most important things to talk about, is kamae. So how do I stand with the sword? I'm going to have Josh go ahead and come into frame here. Josh is going to face you standing in a kamae, regular Chudan-ken kamae. So this is Chudan-ken kamae. There's some really important things you have to understand about this stance. What's basically happening in this stance is Josh is putting most all of his body on this side of the sword. So most all of Josh is over here. The only things really that should be on this side of the sword are just a small bit of Josh's arm and hands. Now if Josh really wanted to exaggerate this, he would extend out a little bit, and you can see now by making a slight extension out, the only things on this side of the sword are his thumb and the tops of his fingers here. Now on a regular Japanese style sword, there would be a tsuba right here, a handguard, that would prevent these from getting hit. So they would give enough angle to protect these hands right here, or his thumb and his fingers. And so what this stance does for him, go ahead and go back into regular ken kamae. So what this stance does for him is means that as long as the person's sword is on this side, they can't have an irregular fast attack for him. If their sword's on this side, he would have to adapt. Now the two ways he would adapt is he would move his sword, or sorry, the one way he would adapt to this is he would switch his feet so his body switches to the other position. So this is Gyaku Ken Kamae, it's because his other leg's forward, and you see now he's done that blading process where the sword would be on this side and his body's protected on this side. So understand, wherever the sword is at, they can make a quick action there that you can't respond to. So you always want your sword on the opposite side, or your body on the opposite side of their sword in the hanmi. So if Josh and I were to face each other here, so if we're in ken kamae, you can see I'm bladed, so my body is mostly hiding on this side of the sword. And Josh's sword is over there. If you look at Josh, the same thing's happening for him. The majority of his body is over here, while his sword, or my sword's on this side. So that means I can't make a quick action to get Josh. If I were to attack his hands, you can just stand there. If I were to attack his hands, his tsuba would protect his hands, so I can't make a quick action. In order to get Josh, I would have to physically move my sword over to this side. Now, if that happened, one or two things he can do. He could either move his sword back, so if I moved over here, he could just follow me over there. Or he could move his feet. So if I moved over here, he could move his feet. Now, if he moves his feet, the problem I have is the majority of my body is now on this side of the sword, and his sword's over here with me. So sometimes I tell the kids in the kids class, it's like a dog in a fence. This is the fence that protects me from the dog. Right now the dog's jumped over the fence, so the dog's over here, and it's where I am. I don't want to be that way. So if I shift my body like this, you can see now I've hopped to the other side of the fence, and I've protected myself. The other thing I can do from here is drop my sword underneath. Now the sword dropping action will be faster, the feet will be slower, but the feet give a more definitive position, and the blade gives a less definitive position. So right now by switching my feet, or by switching my sword, I'm in a really good position to attack Josh, and now he's on the defensive. He's in the bad position. Thank you, Josh. So the idea in here, when we have kamae, is that we're blading our body behind the sword. So I want my body protected over here, and anything dangerous on this half of the sword. So when you stand in kamae, you have to understand that's what you're doing. Now a regular ken kamae like this, I'm not being really picky because there's no one in range to hit me right now. As they start to get into range, I'm going to extend that out more and more so my body's more protected behind the sword. Now beyond Chudan-ken kamae, when we have Josh come back in here, we have a couple other kamaes we're going to talk about. So we have regular Chudan-ken kamae, which means middle position with the sword. If Josh switches his feet, we have Gyaku Chudan-ken kamae. And so that's middle position with the opposite leg forward. So in this, you ideally would always like to have a stance where if your right hand's forward, your right foot's forward, and in Japanese sword, we're always going to have the right hand forward and the left hand back. So this position's a little odd for Josh. It's Gyaku. It's opposite of how it really ideally should be because he's got his left foot forward. But he might be forced into that by circumstance. He would, however, always like to be in regular Chudan-ken kamae. Now he could also have Jodan-ken kamae. And that's a high position with the sword here. Now notice, Josh naturally switched his feet. He put his left foot forward, and now because he's brought the sword up, his left hand is also forward. So this is the natural position for a Jodan-ken kamae. He could switch his feet, And he'd be in Gyaku Jodan Ken Kamae, right? So this is because now he's twisting his body, so it's a little opposite of normal. So the natural position for a Jodan is actually like this, because his left hand is predominantly forward, so his left leg is also predominantly forward. Josh could also be in a Gedan Ken Kamae like that. So a Gedan Ken Kamae is when Josh's right foot's forward and his right hand's forward. You can see this is a very natural position. So these are the different positions we're going to basically get in all the time. Chudan Ken Kamae is our primary sword stance. And that can be either regular or Gyaku. Gyaku's not ideal, but you get forced into them. We also have Jodan, which is a high position like this. This position is built for striking immediately, right? So I'm going to go immediately into a strike from this position. Okay. We also have Gedan Ken Kamae. So right here, nice low position with the sword, and he's set in a nice low position. So those are the basic, thank you, Josh. Those are the basic kamae that we're going to use for our sword practice. And understand the main idea in that is blading ourselves behind the sword so we can use the sword as a shield. In Japanese swordsmanship, we don't have a shield like you would in a European style where you have a shield in one arm that you can move around. So our sword acts as both our weapon and our defense. Basic kamae for Bokken practice.